Welcome back to Vaccine Choice Canada.
This is the most important and probably the most difficult decision that they'll be asked to make.
It's a 200-year, multi-generational myth.
When I was in medical school, I learned nothing about what was in vaccines.
We want responsiveness from the medical establishment and from the government.
This is something that permanently alters your child's immune response.
We advocate for informed consent and voluntary vaccination decisions.
What are we afraid of?
This information is not intended as legal, health, or nutritional advice. It is provided for informational purposes only. Vaccine Choice Canada does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements, views, and opinions presented by its guests.
Thanks for joining us to all of our friends with Vaccine Choice Canada and to the members of Canada Health Alliance with whom we invite into these conversations. And a special welcome to anybody that's joining us for the first time. My name is Ted Kuntz, and I'm the president of Vaccine Choice Canada, and I'm joined again by my co-host, Dr. Stephen Malthouse. Dr. Malthouse practiced family medicine in Canada for 45 years, integrating the best of conventional and complementary therapies with a special interest in homeopathic medicine. Dr. Malthouse is the founding president of the Canadian Integrative Medicine Association, past president of Canada Health Alliance, and a longtime supporter of Vaccine Choice Canada. His wisdom and experience as a frontline physician are valued in these conversations. This evening's conversation is another episode in our Raising Healthy Children series. This is actually the 9th in a series of conversations Dr. Malthouse and I have hosted where we examine the claims of the vaccine industry. This evening's conversation is with Bronwyn Hancock and Greg Glaser. Our focus will be on a 2020 study called the Control Group Study that compared the health outcomes of vaccinated and completely vaccine-free individuals in the United States. Our goal with these conversations is to assist parents and adults to make an informed decision based upon quality scientific evidence. Stephen, would you introduce our guests, please?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. Well, we have two guests tonight. The first, Bronwyn Hancock. She holds a Bachelor of Science from Macquarie University. Now, I'm sure that's probably pronounced differently in Sydney, Australia.
You spelled it, you actually pronounced it correctly, so that's good.
Oh, wow, that's great. That's great. Well, my wife has spent quite a bit of time in Australia, and I think it's kind of rubbed off on me. Get those pronunciations like Barbie and things like that. But to continue then, that's in Sydney, Australia, with a specialization in computing and advanced mathematics. Bronwyn worked 16 years as a systems analyst and programmer. In 1996, Bronwyn began to pursue an interest in vaccination, focusing primarily on related medical research. She produced a video called Vaccination, The Hidden Truth in 1998, and soon afterwards authored a booklet called Vaccination, A Fatal Error. In 2014, in an effort to assist in family law matters in which vaccination was a point of contention, she began to focus on research of published data in government claims specifically relevant to numerical analysis of the risk from non-vaccination compared to that from vaccination. Ms. Hancock joins us from Sydney, Australia.
Good evening. Good afternoon.
It's good evening for us, and I guess good noon to you.
Yeah, and thank you very much.
And let me introduce our second guest, Greg Glaser. Greg Glaser, he's a lawyer who served as the General Counsel for Physicians for Informed Consent, or known as the PIC. The PIC delivers data on infectious diseases and vaccines and unites doctors, scientists, healthcare professionals, attorneys, and families who oppose mandatory vaccination. In his daily law office work, Greg helps families with vaccine exemptions, and he litigates for constitutional rights. Greg is also the lead counsel for the Control Group, a pilot survey of unvaccinated Americans that has filed federal litigation to support the right to remain unvaccinated, and he lives in California. So I think we're a little envious of all you guys in some warm weather. It's getting cold up here.
So welcome to the both of you. Thanks for joining us this evening. Maybe a place to start is when did the two of you first realize that vaccines are not what our governments and medical industry purports them to be?
I'll let Bronwyn take that one because she learned before me.
Okay. All right. Okay, I was already into natural health in the 80s, and I became a member of the Natural Health Society of Australia, and Dr. Vera Scheibner and and she made important discoveries with respect to this, initially with respect to cot death, but later on wider than that. And she wrote a book which was published in 1993, and through the Natural Society I became aware of her, and she gave a talk in 1995 at a Natural Society seminar, and I approached her just out of the blue. I met her at the seminar, and then afterwards I called her and I said I wanted to help you with your work. So and even then, that what she told me on that call was quite interesting. But after that call in December '95, I just felt I was finally going to be doing what I was meant to be doing, coming up here. And as she said I could do to help her was to come and sort out all these huge heaps of medical journal articles that she kept bringing back from the library. She was constantly going to the medical library, driving there and photocopying lots of medical journal articles and bringing them back to study them. And so I helped her initially with sorting them out, but of course then I would be reading them and I'd say, I'm sorry, I'm taking ages to do this because I keep reading them. She said, oh no, that's good, you learn. So that's how I started learning about that, through my mentor, Dr. Scheibner. And so it grew from there. And then I started providing the vaccination information service in 1997. And I wrote a submission to the Irish government in was that 96 or 97, which formed the basis of that booklet I ended up doing more on to produce that booklet. So, and then I made the video in 1998. But yeah, that's how it all started, with my interest in natural health, and then offering to help Dr. Scheibner with her research and communicating the results of it to the public in the mid-90s. So
now my memory of Dr. Schreibner is that she and her husband developed a device. Was it called a cot watch or something that would monitor infants in their cribs?
Yes.
And began to see a relationship between vaccination and their heart. I can't remember
breathing,
what
I think it was. Wasn't it their breathing
was
rhythms?
it breathing?
Yes, it was the volume of breathing. She wasn't looking for a link to vaccination when she started. No. It was completely cold. She was quite pro-vaccination when she started, so it's not like she's had bias there. And so it was this equipment attached to the monitor, and when the monitor went out to the for use, and it was a very good monitor because it could detect that the breathing had stopped while the heart was still beating, so it could distinguish between the two, because it's much better to catch it, see something wrong then than wait till the heart's already stopped. So it was given praise for that good attribute. Anyway, the alarms were going off when they had low volume breathing in the babies, and she noticed a pattern of alarms at certainly a stressful event, which was almost always turned out to be vaccination. We said, well, what did you do on so-and-so day? He said, oh, that was the day we had him vaccinated. And so then they were, she and her husband were telling the cot death researchers.
No, I think what you call cot death, Bronwyn, we call sudden infant death syndrome over here.
Correct.
People may not know.
Same thing, different term for the same thing. Exactly. Yeah.
I think we call things syndromes when we don't want to really look at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cot death sounds a bit too accurate.
Well, I suppose. And when they mentioned the taboo, or or sacred word, vaccination, saying, oh, there's a link to the vaccinations, they just got this really cold unexpected cold response, because it was just a objective, scientific analysis. She wasn't trying to link it with vaccination. That was just what the results were that they found, and they got this cold response and they didn't want to know about it. And so then they discovered that there was so much medical politics in relation to the issue, and but it was like holding a red rag or moving a red rag in front of a bull to her, so that made her get really stuck into it and think, because she's thinking, what's going on here? So they just fired her up all the more. So
yeah, she was somebody that was early on my radar that I think helped me to recognize that we were dealing with something that was going to be censored because it touched on something they didn't want discovered.
Yeah. And by the way, so initially they just had the alarm equipment, but because they got this response, I thought, well, let's make it more scientific, perhaps more exact. So then her husband attached this equipment to it, so it actually measured the breathing on an hourly basis, the volume of the breathing, and of course it showed this pattern of the low volume breathing. I should add that. So anyway, it didn't work. They still got the cold response. Funny about that.
Funny about that. Greg, how did you get into this rabbit hole?
All right. Well, I'm Bronwyn's bridge to California, and she has a bridge on her profile picture right now. And I want to share with you guys how much we are winning. You want to hear about some wins, right?
Sure.
Right? We all want to know what's working. So I represent the unvaccinated, meaning children, families who have not received a vaccine in life, or maybe they decide to stop vaccinating, but including especially those who have never received a vaccine in life. Those are my clients. And that brought me to Bronwyn, because Bronwyn, she's going to go into detail today about the exact calculation, the risk of vaccination. She calculated with a 450-page paper. It is amazing. You will not hear this information anywhere else. How would I know? I'm a lawyer. It's my job to know. Let me share with you guys some wins. I have never seen better success in my entire career than what is happening right now. We are seeing more unvaccinated children being born than ever before. They're being born, their parents are not getting the vaccines. My phone, my email are ringing off the hook with parents who want exemptions. They are figuring it out. Post-COVID, the entire paradigm has shifted. The institutions of power that collect statistics on this information, such as Kaiser Permanente, they are lying to us about the number of unvaccinated. Even Kaiser is admitting that the unvaccinated numbers are growing massively. It is way higher than they are suggesting. They're trying to keep a lid on it. And you can know this by independent polls. That's one way we're winning. Another way we're winning is the doctors. The doctors are beginning to start to wake up. They're talking about it. The hospitals are also, it's very dark in the hospitals. This is something that you guys may need to know. Today, if you go into a hospital, they are filled with not just sick patients, very sick patients. And everybody is talking about it. Now, this is all post-COVID shot. So there's this great awakening that's happening among health professionals. And it is and it's even greater among the people. And you can see it because of the MAHA movement and Secretary Kennedy now at the HHS. So change is happening. This is always how it begins. It begins kind of slow and you start to see the progression, but there is a clear trajectory that the unvaccinated are growing in numbers, which was the case that Bronwyn and I, that I brought with my clients, that Bronwyn served as an expert witness on. And our case was representing the unvaccinated, the right to remain unvaccinated. And we petitioned the President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, to create a remedy for us. And you can see it manifesting now, the remedy that we are seeking. You can see it in MAHA. So these are good days, and they're only getting better. I speak with a lot of youth. I speak with a lot of young people, and they are optimistic. They have a wonderful vision for their future. They are active. They want to be healthy, and they are open-minded to these points of view. They're interested in natural health, natural living, and so forth. It's really good days ahead. So, so a lot of the previous thought about what was like being unvaccinated or being an anti-vaxxer, it just doesn't apply anymore. Today, that word anti-vaxxer is meaningless because I don't know anyone who wants every single vaccine on the schedule. I don't know even one person who wants every single vaccine on the schedule, every booster. And so this is a great time to hear what Bronwyn has to say, because Bronwyn is going to calculate for you. She will share with you her calculations on the exact risk of each vaccine on the schedule. You know what's so unique about her analysis? She did something no one else did. This is really important, you guys. She looked at the vaccine risk of each vaccine, the waning rate for each vaccine, every vaccine on the schedule, and looked at government data.
Waning rate of
the waning rate of the vaccine to see like its effectiveness.
Of the claimed effectiveness. Yep.
The claimed effectiveness. And she compared the risk of the vaccine to the risk of the disease in each instance. And in every instance, she found, Bronwyn, take it away.
Okay. Okay, yeah. In every instance, I found that the risk from being vaccinated, and this was for children from soon after birth, okay, to the age of just before they turn 20, so the first 20 years of their life, because we were looking at vaccines that are mandated for entry into childcare and school and colleges in the United States. That are mandated at least in some states. So in every case, the risk from vaccinations worked out to be greater than the risk from not being vaccinated.
Did you want to talk about this slide?
Yes, yeah. So that's the difference. Those figures in there, so many times, that's the difference in the risk figures between the risk from vaccination and the risk from non-vaccination. So do you want me to tell you a bit more about how I worked out those risks?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So with the risk from non-vaccination, to work that out, in most cases you start off with working out the risk from the disease itself, and she worked that out as long as you know the vaccination. Starting off with the disease notification rate in the relevant population, and by the way, with the population, I did this separately for each age group within the age range. So, and then each group within that range. Okay, so so within each of those populations, the disease notification. If you have that, and you have the vaccination effectiveness, and you have the vaccination coverage, then that enables you to work out what the disease rate is in the unvaccinated. So you start out with that, and then that, because with the vaccination effectiveness, you by multiplying by that, you then get the increased risk as a result of being unvaccinated compared to being vaccinated. Okay. So, because we're not just looking at, because they acknowledge that the diseases are not 100%, that vaccines are not 100% effective. So that reduces it by that.
Where Bronwyn did the efficacy number come from for each of these vaccines?
Well, this is an interesting thing I was about to go on to next. Okay. Okay. Now, the the efficacy numbers I used were very conservative, because what they did is they relied on a theory, an assumptive theory that is made, that when you have a certain level of antibody, concentration of antibodies in the blood after vaccination, then that would be seroprotective. And but it's actually decades ago they found that it's not, because they found, for example, with tetanus, they found patients with very high levels of what is supposed to be seroprotective levels of antibodies, suffering severe cases of tetanus, and one of them even dying from tetanus, even though they had far higher levels of these, far higher concentrations than what you're supposed to need to be protected. So they found out long ago that their theory is incorrect, but they didn't have another theory to replace it with, so they just stuck to it.
Yeah, they're still using that today.
Yeah, and so I think if we want to just connect some dots here, so the theory is that the antibody levels equal protection.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is it's a theory that hasn't proven itself to be true. You can have high antibody levels and still contract a disease, and you can have low antibody levels and not contract the disease. And so they're using a surrogate marker for efficacy. That's not valid. Greg, would you agree?
Yes, but I would add that Bronwyn's point is that she used the metric that the manufacturer uses in her expert report. So what Bronwyn was saying is that even if you use Merck's own data, even if you use Merck's own method, the vaccine benefit is still far, far less than the risk of the vaccine, according, again, to Merck's own metric that they look at, which is things like they look for safety signals in the government database. And so Bronwyn will explain that. Bronwyn, I think that's maybe the next piece, is you want to explain how you assessed vaccine risk and cited, for example, sources like Cherry.
Okay. The way I worked out vaccine risk, I used a few different methods, because I started out with a method that was quite time consuming. And I realized I was going to run out of time if I kept using that method with the others. But I found other methods which in theory they should be quite happy with. So one method I used, which was with the DPT, that's diphtheria, pertussis and tetanus and polio vaccines, is I looked at the reports on the VAERS database, and I broke them down by vaccine, and took into account the population rate, the population numbers, to work out the rate at which they're occurring, and of course, according to the report by Lazarus that came out about, I think, 2011, the actual number of serious adverse events occurring is about 100 times after vaccinations, about 100 times greater than reported in the database. In fact, as the lovely late Dr. Tony Bark said, virtually no doctors even know that the database even exists, let alone spend time reporting to it, which is not very, which takes time and money from them. So it's a very poor passive reporting system.
This is the vaccine adverse events reporting system.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, but this Lazarus, he was engaged by the CDC itself. I think it was the CDC, wasn't it, Greg, to do an analysis of this database.
Yes, the Harvard Pilgrim study.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Was commissioned by CDC through NIH.
Engaged him. Yeah, and he was going to do more work than that, but that was the first part of the finding, is he found that rate of only about 1% being reported, and it seems the government didn't like that very much, so they stopped the funding. They
Well,
stopped
and wasn't he involved in a project to automate the reporting of vaccine injury? And when it got revealed that only 1% are being reported, they they didn't want a better reporting system.
That's the
That's right. They
point.
didn't.
It's that the whole thing was designed to fail. Imagine you're an accountant, okay? And you go into a meeting with your client and you say, Mr. Client, I am going to design a system for you that fails 99% of the time. Do you think you would get hired for that contract? Of course not. But when it's the government that hires the builder of the VERA system, they said, do it. Build a system that fails 99% of the time. So even though we have this flawed system, even if you know the approximate error rate, which is what Lazarus did, he found the approximate error. It's, it's about 100 times. Like if you multiply it by 100 times, you get a sense of what the vaccine injury rate is. But regardless of what it actually is, at the very least, you have a safety signal. You have an approximation. And then, Bronwyn, could you explain how cherry fits into that?
Cherry?
Or explain the modifier. Explain how you understood how to factor Lazarus into your calculation.
Okay, so I multiplied the rate by 100. However, the comeback with that from the comeback to that would be, as we hear whenever you talk about adverse events reported in the database, they go, oh, well, just because an adverse event is reported, that doesn't mean that it's causally linked. Well, that's true. However, there was an analysis done in Australia of causality with our passive reporting system here. And the World Health Organization had a system by which causality, and they applied that to adverse events, in our database system, and so I used those results, and I've applied the exact figures, about 21 point something %, but I found also it was say approximately 20% of adverse events reported were in the category of either a certain or probable causation. And the third category, now, so what I did is I just took the certain or probable, and that makes up 20%, and I completely disregarded the possible. So you could say that's quite conservative, really. But I applied that 20% to the events reported in the US system. Now, somebody might say, oh, well, maybe the doctors don't report events as much in the as much in one country than the other, but I think it's reasonable to say that it's probably college in each country, because the medical system's pretty similar in
So Bronwyn,
countries.
so then did you take the number of reports of, let's say, death, and then multiply it times 20%? Just take 20% of that number and assume that based on what a very conservative choice, that is the number that may have, let's say, died from a vaccine.
Yeah, that's
as opposed to 100%. And then did you multiply that by that factor that was found by Lazarus in the Harvard Pilgrim study?
Multiplied by 100.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Now, and of course, another comeback was that is they might say, oh, the doctors are more likely to report more serious adverse events like death than they are with less serious adverse events. But I haven't seen any evidence of that. And I think, if anything, it's more likely to be the contrary, because the more serious the effect is that they think is there, the more embarrassing it is for them. And I think they're much less likely to say to a parent, oh, sorry, I think we killed your child by vaccinating him. Then they go, oh, yes, he's got this effect, and this things that happened, we think that might be linked. I think the more embarrassing it is, and actually they're less likely. I could be wrong, but it could go either way. So for a want of any better percentage available, that's what I've used. Okay, and they're quite welcome to come back in Civic, but I think that's all we have at the moment.
Well, and that would be my question. How has the government responded to this data? Greg, you've taken this data into court, have you? Or how have you used this information?
Yes. Well, we presented it in federal court and preserved the record, along with 5,000 pages of mainstream medical information for the court. But the case did not proceed on procedural grounds. And so it's never actually been litigated in the sense of going to a jury trial or actually being presented factually to a judge. That can change in the future, and we hope and expect that it will. Just has to be the right time and the right set of facts. But in the meantime, the information is being used by lawyers and by parents to show this safety signal. And if you could put the image up on the screen again of Bronwyn's chart, that I think that we could all appreciate or agree that this is clearly a safety signal, which is what VAERS was designed to be. It was designed to be a safety signal. And so Bronwyn's conservative calculus shows that if you're unvaccinated, that's you in the green at the very top. You have almost no risk of getting being injured by these diseases that vaccines target. That's you. But if you get a vaccine, you just keep going down this list, one after the next. Every time you get a vaccine, you are at greater and greater risk of getting injured.
I just have to go away. I just have to go away for a minute. Okay, I'll be back in a moment. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sure thing. So I think what we have is a clear safety signal that the courts and certainly a jury would recognize, especially now that we're in the post-COVID era. When we brought our case before the federal court and I presented all of this evidence, it was actually at the height of COVID. I don't know if you guys remember this, but courts were very scared about COVID. They thought that people were dying. This is before the vaccine. It was a very challenging time. And as I was litigating the case, there was even a time, you can take off the screen share if you want.
Although if you could leave it on for a minute there, Ted, I think because it's very interesting going over just thinking about the relative vaccine risks here of some of the diseases like varicella, which is thought to be so naturally safe. Like it's chickenpox, and people used to go to chickenpox parties. Whether they actually worked or not, that's another question. And that some of these are pretty mild diseases to have such an increased risk. It's not worth it.
Well, and you look at this like for the Hep B vaccine, it's 3 times the risk of those that are vaccinated versus unvaccinated, and that's significant all by itself. But then you look to like varicella, more than 160 times, the MMR more than 261 times, and polio, what's that, 4,600,000 increased risk. Like, I mean,
can I add in? Yeah, can I add in something here?
Yeah.
The methods that I used varied a bit from one vaccine to another. Now, I said I started out with the DPT and the polio vaccines, and I sort of distributed the adverse effects between them, which may not be correct. So it might be polio is a bit less than 4,600,000.
Just to jump in, Bronwyn, DTP is diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis.
That's right. Yeah.
Each one has quite different incidents in, epidemiologically. We see very little tetanus death, and we see very little diphtheria death. And it's a question how much pertussis death we see too.
Yeah.
Not very much.
Not just that, but we just had a suggestion come up, which I missed. Anyway, I'll see that in a minute. Not just that, but even occurrence of the disease themselves. So pertussis is very common, and Okay, pertussis is very common, but diphtheria and tetanus, even notifications of those are very, very rare. Very rare. Like I know in Australia, you might get about half a dozen in the whole population, half a dozen notifications of tetanus per year. And so you multiply that by about 15 for.
And just because they get it doesn't mean they die, right?
Oh yeah, it's there's much more chance of survival than death, of course.
Oh yes, I don't think we've had a death from tetanus for quite a long time in Canada.
But the measles is an example where the messaging is that if you get measles, you're going to die. At least that's what many people have been led to believe, but that's not true.
No, no. I when I was doing the disease analysis for measles, I actually looked at the rates based on a study done in the UK back in about 1962, I think was thereabouts, which was long before they even used a vaccination there. So it's quite clearly the rates are based on unvaccinated, and also general health has continued to improve since the early 60s. So the rates for the unvaccinated would be even better now than they were then. This is when I'm saying the rates like case fatality, the chance of serious adverse effect or death per measles case. Yeah. Anyway, I was just saying that in the case of DPT and polio, and I think it's meningococcal, I was using the VAERS, the VAERS database, VAERS. However, with some other vaccines, I used, I think another one I used the European passive surveillance system, but the other vaccines I actually use studies, which would have been sponsored by the manufacturers, where they were actually doing active surveillance, and they don't, considering how uncommon the diseases are, they don't have anywhere near the subjects they ought to have in order to get a very precise result. But I used what they did and what they think is enough for them to declare that it's worth vaccinating. So if it's good enough for them, then I use it as well. So with Hep B, the result I would say was imprecise. They thought it was good enough, but I found the result was still then worked out to be the risk worse from vaccination than not being vaccinated. And but if I was able to study that in more depth, spend more time in it, study in more depth, it may well be that 3 times increases to much more, I think, considering the number of subjects. Yeah.
What you said earlier, though, about probably having fewer deaths reported just because of this, I would say that doctors would find it difficult, and public health and nurses and others that might do the reporting might find it difficult to do that because they would feel so badly about it. So if you looked at, I mean, you've brought out the deaths, relative death rate here compared to the unvaccinated. What would be your take on the injured rate?
I did both. I did serious adverse events, and I made sure that they were defined the same way for the vaccinated and the unvaccinated to do a proper comparison. So I did that. I did deaths. So, so the main thing I did actually was the serious adverse events. Well, I don't mean, I did the whole group as a whole, and hospitalizations and deaths. So included that, yes. And it still worked out, regardless, it still worked out the risk was high from vaccination.
I mean, I think,
yeah.
I was going to say, I think this is paradigm shifting information. When we can effectively communicate with parents that the risk of dying or the risk of a serious adverse effect is higher from vaccination than from non-vaccination, that should stop this insanity pretty quick.
Were there any vaccines that you found didn't have an increased risk over the? None.
No.
Greg, could you
And by the way, I might add this too. I didn't know what the result of the tables at the end. So there's no bias involved here. I didn't go fiddling with the figures. I just went through it, and I thought because I was being so conservative with the vaccination effectiveness, it might work out the other way. So yeah, I didn't know what the results would be, but this is what happened.
Yeah, it's a very powerful report. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see what it looks like. It's 450 pages of calculations that look like this. It is a dense report, fully cited with government citations. That's really the key point here. It's that this is a document that relies on systems information that the manufacturer relies on, that the CDC relies on. That 450-page report was consolidated into a single graphic thanks to Vaccine Choice Canada. Thank you. And now the question is, getting this information out to the public so that they can benefit from the analysis. And I think that it's a wonderful time for the public to benefit from this analysis because people will understand it better. I recently heard that because everyone went through COVID together, people are starting to understand how to appreciate vaccine risk better. Like, for example, before COVID, if you talked about vaccine transmission to someone, they wouldn't really understand what you're talking about. But after COVID, everyone gets it. Oh yeah, the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting COVID, right? It's instant. It's a click. Well, it's the same sort of thing here. Folks can understand what the risk is of the vaccine compared to the risk of the disease, and people are more likely to know about VAERS. They're more likely to know about underreporting a vaccine injury because they've personally experienced it under COVID. They'll experience a vaccine. Maybe they know someone with a vaccine injury under COVID, and the doctors don't recognize that it's connected to the vaccine. They go, "Oh yeah, I get it. There's an underreporting of vaccine injury." It makes intuitive sense to them. So that's the analogy. And I think that Vaccine Choice Canada is in an excellent position to help share this information. And so thank you, Ted, for leading that.
Well, and this came out of Dr. Paul Thomas's new book, Facts versus Unfacts, and he had this data in the appendix of the book. And when I saw it after I read the book and got to that part of the book, I just thought this is so critical that this information gets shared. And so we've worked with our graphic folks to create something that we think will help to communicate the information. But I saw in the chat people are asking where they can get that report. So if you go to our website, vaccinechoicecanada.com/risk of death, you'll come to this page here, and there's a link here to that report. So it's this is the judicial notice document, Greg, that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one. 450 pages of math.
Well,
I would be impressed if anyone can actually read it.
I see it.
It is so dense and so good, which is exactly what I wanted from my expert, Bronwyn. She truly is a math expert. And, you want that granular attention to detail. It's really important. It matters in court. Court is a higher standard, by the way, than average publication in a journal. It's better than peer review. So we have something.
That's not saying much, Greg, as you know.
Yeah, better than peer review. Right. It's like better than organic, right?
That's like
so has anybody challenged this analysis?
No one. Not one person has ever challenged this or brought any of the calculations into question. I have not received a single email or phone call or anything that said, hey, one of your calculations is incorrect, or hey, can I have some more information on this citation? It stands today confirmed, including by, I had all my other experts review this information. PhD research scientists with the California Department of Public Health. That's a government scientist. Vetted, checked, approved. Multiple doctors physicians in California, vetted, checked, approved. Yeah, this information. So that's what I'm saying is better than peer review. This is information that you can rely on. And moreover, Bronwyn included the exact citations for all of her points in the actual document. So when you rely on the Vaccine Choice Canada graphic, you know what is behind it, which is that solid court document.
Well, and Bronwyn has been very particular when we created those graphics and put the website up for this. She went through that with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that every word in that document was accurate, right, Bronwyn?
Yeah, took me a bit of time.
I wanted to ask, I'm not sure if we're going to do a Q&A or whatnot, but Bronwyn, I wanted to ask you a question about the precautionary principle and how it's so important to where we are in healthcare.
Yes. In common law, and in common law, there's a principle which is related to the Hippocratic Oath, which is first do no harm. There's a principle that before exposing the public to anything which is potentially harmful, a process ought to be gone through whereby it's first either it's not harmful, or if it has benefits and harm, that the benefits at the very least, that the benefits will outweigh the risks, the harm from whatever it is. And that's the way it's supposed to work. But in the US legislation, they've done it the other way around. So they've taken the position that vaccines are safe until they're proven that
that they're not safe. Yeah.
Well, it's all totally the wrong way around. Yeah, and that really needs to change. It's totally contrary to one of the most important principles in common law.
And I think that's the point, is the answer to what Ted was saying, that this is paradigm changing information, and so is the precautionary principle. It changes the paradigm. It fixes part of the thing that got us into this problem of mandatory vaccines and over 70 vaccines on the schedule. It was not following the precautionary principle that got us into this problem, and we're just going to repeat the same problem with something else unless we fix that root. And that's what healthcare should be about. It's about restoring harmony and balance at the foundational level, because I think that's what we want. We want to see a healing in society, in our bodies, in society. And I think as a people, that is where we are growing. And that's where I'm seeing success. I've never seen better days than these days. People are learning, they're interested, eager for the information. People that previously maybe weren't on board with Make America Healthy Again are now thinking, okay, I'm interested. Maybe they're starting to learn about natural remedies or taking care of themselves, exercise, eating well. So I think it's really good days ahead. And this information that Vaccine Choice Canada is sharing is so well timed.
Well, and there's such good information. I mean, the control group study that you guys did in 2020, Dr. Paul Thomas's work, Vax versus Unvax studies with James Lyons Weiler, the Mawson study in, I think, 2017. The most recent one, the Henry Ford Hospital System study that Del Bigtree created, the Inconvenient Study documentary, all of those are compelling and consistent in that unvaccinated children are healthier than vaccinated children.
There's our answer. You can see it. The vaccinated group is in the orange. That is national data, our government's best data. And then the unvaccinated group, we have above 99% statistical to these results. The unvaccinated group is healthy for life. It's like taking a time machine back to the 1950s, where that was the number, where only a small fraction. So approximately, if you're completely unvaccinated, meaning never had a vaccine in life, your mother was never vaccinated during pregnancy, your risk of getting even a tiny chronic illness is approximately 2%. That means 98% of the completely unvaccinated are healthy for life. They don't even have one thing, not one. Could you imagine going through life without one thing? not diabetes. You don't have diabetes. You don't have ADHD. You know, you're just good. You're just clean. 98. Could you imagine living on that street? Imagine you move to a house and 98, and there's 100 people on your street, and 98 of them are perfectly healthy. How amazing would that street be? It would be the best.
You can imagine. You can imagine
Yeah.
what your baseball team would be like if you just had a community baseball team. You just win hands down.
Exactly. But
Get all
now
those kids,
go
yeah.
and now go one street over, and we'll call that vaccinated street. That there, over half of the people on that street have one or more chronic conditions. 10% of them have 5 chronic conditions. That means you're basically dying. And that is the stark difference, which is exactly what Bronwyn data confirms. So that's the point that Ted is raising. It's that we're confirming this. Every single researcher who looks at this, whether it's Paul Thomas, Anthony Mawson, James Lyons Wheeler, Greg Glaser, Bronwyn Hancock, everyone who compares the vaccinated and the unvaccinated finds the exact same conclusion. The unvaccinated are exponentially healthier. The only question that remains is exactly how much healthier. That's the only thing we don't really know. You know, there's different estimates on how much healthier, but as Ted mentioned, also the latest study from Henry Ford also confirmed it once again, using independent methods and these top researchers. So we have the data, we have the channels to communicate this information to the public. The timing is right, and so these are good days.
Can I mention another attempted comeback that we need to like to address? Is that it's often said that the the surrounding vaccinated population, okay, and but very importantly, with respect to that, this result
that?
found.
Could you repeat that, Bronwyn? It was
Oh,
a bit unclear.
it's often said that the unvaccinated are enjoying herd immunity gained from such a large percentage of the population being vaccinated. But something that very importantly undermines that is that in the case of tetanus is not contagious. And the rate of tetanus has got down dramatically. So that this rarity of tetanus that we've been talking about is a rarity in the unvaccinated. They're not enjoying that protection from the vaccinated around them because it's not even contagious. So it's obviously other public health measures and improvements in lifestyles, etc., that are enabling people to be to not be at risk from these diseases, especially compared to the past.
This is also true for diphtheria, which is a toxoid vaccine. And it's interesting, there was a baboon study which, with regard to pertussis, where they showed that the baboons that were vaccinated actually had a higher level of colonization of the pertussis in their respiratory tracts, particularly their noses, and yet they had a slight reduction in symptoms. So the issue is you develop these super carriers that no one can identify. And, it's quite a push over here for your family to get vaccinated if you have a new child. And this actually puts the child at increased risk of getting pertussis, whooping cough.
Yes, that's right. It's counterproductive.
Now, my recollection is with the 2020 control group study. That was the only study that I'm aware of that actually also pulled out the vitamin K shot and saw the difference in adverse events from having it or not having it. Am I correct about that? If you find value in the kind of conversations we have here at Vaccine Choice Canada, I invite you to support our work by becoming a member.
You are correct. We found that the vitamin K shot was a significant factor in the chronic illness rate in children. So what we did to delineate that was, if you can see this yellow subset, the yellow triangle, that is children who either got the vitamin K or their mother was vaccinated during pregnancy. They look kind of vaccinated. It's not as bad as the fully vaccinated, but they're on their way to being vaccinated.
That's a tough one, though. That's a tough one because of a lot of women are getting vaccinated during pregnancy, right? So were they teased out to differentiate those? Because it might not have been the vitamin K. It could have been like the a flu shot during pregnancy, for example, or a DPT in pregnancy.
Yeah, our particular survey didn't get to that granular detail to divide the vaccinated mother compared to K shot, but I think that's really important for follow-up study. And
yeah, because in Canada we have 6 vaccines that are given recommended during pregnancy. It's a lot, and they all have evidence of detrimental effects crossing the placenta as well, and affecting the fetus.
Right.
And so
right.
on.
Well,
So,
they're giving at the hospital in California at 28 weeks, they will give you the DTaP.
yes.
So, and here's a secret for you that you may not know. I know from inside information, speaking with hospital employees. They give the DTaP at 28 weeks, and then women start to deliver prematurely at week 30. So within 2 weeks, they start prematurely. So there are all these preemies who fill up the NICU. And for every NICU baby, the hospital makes between about $100,000 to $1 million. So those DTaP vaccines are causing preemies, which cause millions to the hospital every day.
Wow.
It's an absolute heartbreaking, as someone just put in the chat, exact heartbreking. Thank you. It is.
Well, you might say they're doing it intentionally, but that may or may not be true. I mean, they may just be following the schedule and not picking up on it. But the other one is they may be somewhat reluctant to stop the practice, even when the evidence shows that it's not safe.
I think they do know what they're doing, and I think that because it's plain in the data, like you could just see it. That if you go into the hospital record systems, and I can tell you who can do this, like case managers, for example, they access all of the patient files. So a case manager will have hundreds of access to patient files daily, every day. And so you can compare the vaccinated to the unvaccinated. And what you find is that the unvaccinated mothers are not delivering preemies into NICU. It's the vaccinated mothers. They know it. Knowingly, they are following these policies.
It's hard to believe that level, it's criminality in my view. But we're talking about the fellow that was responsible for the Henry Ford study, who kept it buried for 5 years. I mean, I think that's criminal behavior. He had clear evidence of what was causing harm to our infants, and chose his career over the health of babies. Why are these people not in jail?
It's a systemic issue that there's something about our society, the way we order ourselves, that lends itself toward using others in order to gain something. And until we fix that root, then we're just going to it's the same issue will keep manifesting. It's just like with health in the body. Like, unless you fix the root, you might treat a symptom, but it just pops up somewhere else. It's like, I like the example of a balloon. You have a balloon, you're like, oh, I'm going to squeeze out this part. Well, the air just goes into somewhere else, right? It's exactly like that. We gotta address the root. So I guess that's the question then. Why do people try to gain unfair advantage over others or take advantage of others?
Well, the bottom line is they do. And so what it means is we have to be more responsible in our medical choicing, right?
Yeah. I think, one of the remedies is light. If we can shine the light, then it brings accountability. And so the people who are supposed to protect others, like doctors, for example, will be more careful. But right now, the doctors are completely protected by the system that says you cannot be sued.
Well, if anything, they're incentivized to continue the vaccine paradigm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hospital administrators, so the case managers that I just mentioned, the ones who have the data, who know, they're protected by the privacy laws. These great privacy laws that we cherish are actually hurting us as well, because there's no transparency. So do you know how easy it would be for me to actually prove the vaccinated versus unvaccinated study if I just had the keys, if I could just go into the hospital and get the data, but they won't ever give me the keys. Do you know why? Privacy. You
Well,
see,
that's not why. That's the excuse. The why is
Yeah. Because they could disguise the names and things like that so that you could get the data, with it being kind of anonymized.
And HHS also will not go in, or our health agencies will not go in and investigate. They have the power. They can go in, they can find, all they have to do is first you find a safety signal, step one, check. Then you send a notice of investigation to the hospital and say, we want access to your data, redact it if you want. It's so easy, but they never do. Why? Why don't the health agencies investigate these safety signals?
Because they know the results already.
there's too much money in vaccines.
That's it. So we
And
have a
that not only-
captured, corrupt system. And so, but why? Like what created, like, we're smart people. We're, there's like Western culture, we're civilized society. Why would we create systems that actually entangle us and injure us for money? Why would we do that? There's got to be something deeper. Like, and you can see it even with people in your life. Like why do you see otherwise smart, good people who will put themselves in situations where they sabotage themselves? They might drink themselves to death. They get into, relationships where they like end up lying about things. Like, why is that? What's the root of it?
I would say that from what I can see, that the root is safety. And it's really a subconscious impulse in most cases. And we kind of think that people can figure their way out of it. But really, the impulses are such, and it takes many manifestations, whether it's having enough money in the bank to feel safe, or whether it's, being, injected, or whether it's, safety and having I would say a career, or having
it's a lack
certain
of
level
courage.
status. Yeah. You have to overcome that subconscious desire for safety, I think. And it's a bit like people do that on the battlefield where they run out and save a friend, even if they know they could get shot and killed themselves. They overcome that strong desire for safety. And until we do that, it's hard to be ethical because everything is based on one's own gain. It doesn't matter about the other people. That's my take on it.
That's a good answer, Stephen. It's and I would say that when you point toward the fear that people have of being unsafe, then we start to get to right at that root, which is fear. People are afraid of being uncomfortable. They're afraid of failure. People are afraid of being wrong. We will go to great lengths to convince ourselves that we are right about something, that whatever we chose was like the right answer. Or even if it's not the right answer, we just hope that no one will ever find out that we made the wrong choice. We just hope no one will know.
Well, that's reputation, you see, which again undermines your sense of self, which is your sense of safety, right? But something like this study is so wonderful because when people do actually start to overcome that sort of how would you say a self-centered desire for safety, which we all have, it's kind of almost in us. Then we will have some material which we can show them. So this is why having the material that's available for the intellect to study and so on, and then the emotions will come with that and so forth. It's so valuable to have in place at this time.
Well, and I think if people really understood the data, they would be more afraid of vaccines than they are of unvaccinated.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ted.
Oh, yeah.
An increased fear.
It's
a
fear.
ratio.
Yeah, it's a ratio. And I think fear is definitely the paradigm. So the question is, how do you help people release from their fear? And obviously this graphic helps them with that. It's factual, it is vetted, it's supported by its citations, it stands by itself. So that's great. But it also is part of a larger paradigm, which is, I think, what we're talking about here, which is how do you help people release from fear? Part of it is having an open mind, like keeping an open mind to ways to heal. There are many ways to heal.
But that takes courage too, to have an open mind. Yeah, I saw a quote last week that I liked. It says, "We don't need more information. We don't need more studies. We don't need more research. We have enough. What we need is courage, courage to do the right thing. Yeah. Well, this is fabulous. We've got Bronwyn testifying at the National Citizens Inquiry this week. Looking forward to that testimony. I want many more people to understand the work that the two of you have done and the contribution you've made. Again, I think that if people simply looked at that postcard and understood the risk of vaccination, it would change the paradigm overnight. Roxanne, have you got a question?
Yes. Hi, Greg. I found what you said at the beginning very encouraging, that you're seeing more and more people wake up in the face of the mass propaganda we've been fed for so long. So that is a very positive development. But given the nature of the mercenary media with their tentacles controlling everything from, the medical schools and the medical bodies and the media and of course, the pharma cartel at the top. How is this information penetrating outside the echo chamber to get to the indoctrinated who need to see it most, need to be confronted most? What are some examples that you've seen of perhaps doctors who've been, which is the majority, part of the status quo, making that kind of breakthrough, and through what means? And the same with the public. I'm curious, is it through social media, or how are the breakthroughs coming so that it's not just circulating in the echo chamber and reaching a relatively few, given the numbers that have been potentially or can potentially be harmed by vaccination? Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne, for that question. Yeah, the mainstream media wants you to believe that you are in the minority. You are not. It is not an echo chamber. What social media has proven, and we've proven this a million times over, is we ratio the media. The New York Times cannot even compete with even a single social media influencer. New York Times, maybe they get some views, maybe some interest. They cannot even compete. And it's this, and we're finding this on social media. We're also finding that it's much easier to publish in scientific journals now. And even organizations are forming their own journals. They're doing their own accreditations. For example, the Independent Medical Alliance, the IMA, you may know them as the Frontline COVID Care Alliance that helped with ivermectin prescriptions. They have their own journal. They have their own accreditation. They have their own fellowship. So it's about growing new systems and changing the paradigms. I think social media was the ultimate game changer. And there are many ways to explain why that is, but the mainstream, they're panicked. They're absolutely panicked. In fact, they were so panicked that what did they try to do to you during COVID? What did they try? They tried to censor you, didn't they? That is how scared they are of your message. Now, they wouldn't censor you if you didn't have any clout. That's the thing. You're not in the echo chamber. You are the majority. Congratulations, you're winning.
I think something that people need to think about is that once they realise that the government's lied to them about one thing, such they've seen serious adverse effects and deaths from the COVID shots. So once they recognise that, they then need to go, well, if they lied to us about that, how can we rely on them for anything else that they keep assuring us about? And so, with anybody in your relationships, once anybody lies to you, you can't trust them with anything else. So that doesn't mean that they're going to be compulsive lies and everything's going to be a lie, but it just means that you can't automatically rely on it, and you need to do your own research.
Mm-hmm. People do tend to compartmentalize a lie, though. They say, well, they just lied about that, but they wouldn't lie about those other things.
Exactly.
People have a way of kind of, how would you say, justifying their desire for safety. And in Canada, people are used to the government taking care of them. We have our healthcare is provincial healthcare that people, gets taken out of your taxes essentially, but people don't pay. And a lot of times people will accept inferior care or long waiting time to get something done if it's free. People are reluctant to hand out.
If they're told it's free, because
pardon me, Ted.
If they're told it's free, because it's not free.
No, it's not free, but they have the illusion that it's free.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most difficult things here in Canada is people will not give up something that is free.
I think one of the things that I'm seeing, I mean, what they say is that the movement is going in one direction. There's nobody that is aware of vaccine risk that then says, "Oh, I'm going to take all the vaccines." Once you see the lie, you stop participating in the deception. And so the movement is from people that believe in vaccines that are beginning to recognize they've been lied to, and then they move over into our side of things. And so I see our side is growing, and the other side is getting smaller. They're also being harmed by vaccines, so they're getting smaller for other reasons as well.
Yeah. And, you know, when you see someone suffering, you know, you really want to be empathetic with them, like, and not just suffering physical health, you know, like someone gets the COVID vaccine and they're suffering, but also suffering under just lies, you know, their mind filled with lies. And you want to help them, you want to help bring them out, you know, but you don't want to be dragged down either, right? And so I think there's a finesse to healing. And so it's wonderful to learn from people, from healers, from doctors, especially who have had success with this, you know, who have patients coming through the door. You know, there's boundaries, there's a line, and there's also healing. You know, so you offer them what is good, and then, you know, you keep firm boundaries, you know, so that you don't get, you know, infected with their toxic ideas and ideologies that can bring you down. And that's one of the challenges with government, is that, you know, government has the guns, so they can force us into relationships that we would never consent to normally. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's another issue that we have to heal from this strange relationship we have with government.
We're in an abusive relationship with our governments, and that has to change.
Yeah. And it changes with open mind. This is one of the most counterintuitive things I've found, is that when you have an open mind, you naturally attract an open mind. Go figure. So you're actually more likely to change the system by keeping a mindset of possibilities, you know? Yeah. Jesse's
always got something to say.
I saw the sign, but they talk about, oh yeah, the flu vaccine, and they talk about, oh yeah, COVID jab, this and that, yeah, it's all drugs.
Yep. All drugs.
And the one guy was saying, do you smoke crack? At No Frills. I went to No Frills. He said to me, do you smoke crack? Do you smoke something? Do you smoke? I said, no, I never smoke at all. I never smoked a long time, never.
Well done, Jesse.
Yeah, I said to him, I never smoke or do crack at all. Because one of my old friend, my friend's son, he died. He died of dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are just in the crazy world we in, with dope and drugs and mask up and
Yeah. So some of the best advice that you might get might be from your grandma and your grandpa. You know, don't do drugs, live healthy, think positive, and love your mother and father.
Well done. Greg, last thoughts? You started this conversation off with a real sense of hope that things are changing.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. The young people are optimistic. They want to do something new, and they want to thrive. You know, they are interested in natural health. They're interested in each other. You know, they like to solve things in groups. And as much as they might get criticized for, you know, being so screen addicted or whatnot, they really don't want that. They're actually quite critical of it. And they are going to rebel against the whole screen thing eventually. And it's going to be glorious. They are going to, you know, come into natural groups, and yeah. And the unvaccinated will continue to thrive. And by the way, the remedy for COVID vaccine injury, the cure, if you like, is fasting and prayer. Yeah. I've spoken with microscopists who analyze the blood and also the vaccine vials, and you can see someone who fasts and they pray, their blood cleans. It's amazing. So, and not like one day fast, like you got a legit fast, you know, maybe a whole week, but which isn't that surprising when you think about it. Like imagine the Lord in heaven, and imagine the Lord is looking down and seeing someone who's COVID vaccinated and injured. Do you think the Lord's going to be like, oh, I can't heal that one? No, I say, whoa, COVID vaccine. Don't know what to do. No, of course not. The Lord can heal anything. So fasting and prayer is an excellent.
He doesn't say, that's a novel virus. I don't know what to do with that one.
So, you know, there's a solution for everything. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh no, there's no answer, just keep an open mind. Think of possibilities.
Great message, Greg. Bronwyn?
I'll follow on from that is, I mean, ultimately, every parent wants good health for their child, and their fear is the main motivating factor. And of course, they don't mention very overplay risk from the diseases and underplay risk from the vaccines. But ultimately, you want good health. The key is to live a life that's as close to nature as possible, as close to how we would live in the wild, in the natural environment. And so much research, nutritional research, just shows that time and time again. And I actually had a section which is not really doesn't tie in with any of the figures, but it's an additional section I included because I think it's important. Is, you know, one aspect, for example, is vitamin C. Vitamin C in the past, we were probably able to produce vitamin C, which most animals do, but we lost that ability. And the only reason we'd lose that ability is that we're having so much vitamin C come in for our in our diets, because of the diets we're eating, that we just didn't need to make it anymore. And do proper studies. A lot of studies with vitamin C, if they do the test, they don't use a very high dose of vitamin C and they go, oh, it didn't have much or any effect. But time and time again, when you use actual mega doses of vitamin C, it performs what the doctors and nurses, you know, witnessing it describe as miracles. But it's not a miracle. It's not supernatural. It's real life. It's happening in reality, and it seems a miracle because they had no idea how powerful it is. And so many lives just with that one measure. It's only one of many, but it's an important one, and hospitals would be saved if on a much greater scale they would administer mega doses of vitamin C. So people dying unnecessarily of sepsis, COVID, when they have died from these conditions, and it's just tragic, unnecessary and tragic. The big pharma hates vitamin C for obvious reasons because it's such a powerful competitor to their own drugs.
Yeah, and they can't patent it. Yeah.
So the key to good health is nature, and just researching and thinking about a lot of it's common sense. What would you do in the wild? You're thinking when you're trying to make a health choice, what would I do in the wild? What would I eat in the wild? How would I live in the wild, etc. Yeah. Okay.
Wait a second. Is this the reason we can't see your webcam? Because you're actually in the wild. So thanks everyone for being here today. This was so nice to connect with.
I'm sitting on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think we can see you sitting right at the top there on that high spot there. Yeah, there you are. Can you wave to us? Right there. Hi.
Stephen, any last words for us tonight?
No, I think it's wonderful, and it's a great study. When was the study? First of all, was it published? And if so, where?
Yes.
And when did it first come out?
Yeah, the Joy Garner study was published in an international journal for vaccine research, and the link is on informedconsentdefense.org, and it was published in either the year 2020, I think 2022, after it was peer reviewed. So it also got peer reviewed, and then Bronwyn's piece though is still in the process of publication. But again, it's been expert vetted. It is a court document. And then the next step will be peer review publication.
Okay, I see. So it's available for people to download and read and so on, and it's not a secret publication that they can't pass around to their teenagers to read at night if they have insomnia, maybe. I'm not sure, but
Yes, and
That's right.
I provide the source. I provide the source to everything that I've there, so people can look at it themselves and do their own calculations. Some of the links might be out of date, but even where that is the case, well, I could provide them, but often with them you can find them on Wayback, or you can with the Wayback machine, or you can find the data if you put in some keywords or some key part of the link. You can find them elsewhere.
I think people just need to see that postcard that we've put together. That should be it.
And
It kind of says it, yeah.
And a question for Bronwyn. You're speaking at the National Citizens Inquiry, which is going to be in a few days in Brandon, Manitoba. And are you going to speak on this topic, or what? What
Yes.
are you going to speak about?
That's
Okay.
that's the plan. Yeah.
And are you coming to Canada, or are you going to get your camera
No.
fixed?
No, I'm just, oh, well, good question. Yeah, I won't be coming to Canada, but hopefully I can fix the camera. Yeah.
Well, Stephen's going to be there as well, so we're going to see
Yeah.
Stephen in
Yes.
person in a couple of days. Looking forward to that. Fabulous conversation, both of you. Thank you for the work that you've done. To me, you've helped to make a significant shift in the paradigm, and God bless you for all of your hard work and commitment and truth telling. I have no doubt you've saved many lives. If you find value in these conversations, I invite you to support Vaccine Choice Canada with a donation. Your support allows us to do even more, to educate families and to protect our right to medical choice for ourselves and for our children. To make a donation, go to vaccinechoicecanada.com.